Hey everybody, my name is Jared Malott. I'm here with my good friend Mateo, and this is the Coltist, episode 10. We're gonna get that right this time.
Yeah,
Uh, this is the 2023 NBA pre-draft episode. The Coltist, however, is an Indianapolis Colts and Indiana Pacers podcast. I think we've got a unique premise. We got to be one of
yeah,
the only podcasts around that actually talks about two different professional sports in the same city. And I think it's super interesting, by the way, that my co-host Mateo lives in Argentina. And I just think that's
yeah,
super cool. Like most of the time you get a podcast, it's just a couple guys talking about ball, but you know, the fact that you're a
yeah,
fan of both Indiana teams and I live in Indy, it makes sense for me. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah, I think we got
It,
a
it
super unique
always,
premise.
yeah, it always amazed me, how in Stampede Blue, basically, we have guys from all around the globe. I think
Hmm.
Paras and Andrew are Canadian, and Elliot, who was on the podcast, is from the UK. So
Hmm.
yeah, who would have thought that a small market team like the Colts and the Pacers would
Right,
have fans everywhere across the globe?
which makes it a super unique perspective that we have to share. So obviously, the last episode was the doldrums of summer because up to that point it had been really quiet and appreciably so. Like this is what you want when you have like a young quarterback and a nice little draft
Yeah,
class. You don't want nobody getting hurt. You don't even want anybody making big plays. You just, hey, they made it. That's all we care about. And we want to make sure we always shout them out because these are guys that he might stick around, right? You might get another opportunity, but the last play of um what is it? Rookie
OTAs, yeah.
OTAs. What do we say his name was? Daniel Scott out of
Daniel Scott,
fifth
safety
rounder out
from,
of
yeah,
Cal. He's a safety. Had a hell of a last year playing ball, so that makes it super interesting to see him if he's able to come back. Like, can he get back to that level? Because he was pretty productive there in college. But yeah, he tore his ACL on the very last play at OTAs, which we were kind of talking about before. It's like, man, we got the bug like every year in these
yeah. It
meaningless
seems like every
practices.
year, well,
Was that what you say?
yeah,
Ogletree
we get an
last year?
injury, season-ending injury.
Yeah.
Ogletree last year, who was having an impressive, I believe Ogletree was in training camp, and he was reportedly, the miles ahead of what everyone was expecting in training camp, and I believe he also tore his ACL, and he, should be ready to play this year, but who knows with the amount of depth the Colts have at tight end right now if he makes it. But now, Daniel Scott, who most likely a special teamer to begin with,
Yeah.
then but the Colts are not particularly strong at safety, so it's not like he might have been able to see the field at least. But we know Rodney Thomas, the seventh rounder out of I believe it was Harvard or Yale. I
Hmm.
believe it was Yale. I remember it was an Ivy League school. He saw the field a lot last year
Yeah.
as a 7th round pick. And Rodney McLeod is now no longer with the team, so I was thinking, okay, perhaps this guy could see some meaningful playing time. Now, of course, not because of the ACL injury, but
Right.
yeah, it sucks. Like we jinxed it.
Yeah,
Like
we
not
did.
officially, of course, but
The last episode that we recorded, we were kind of laughing about how for having drafted a quarterback in the top five, we'd had a pretty quiet offseason, nothing really to note. Um, I think
yeah,
I'd
right
seen
after
like
that,
really one comment where I can't remember what good Colts defensive player was talking about AR, and he said the ball really jumps off his hand. And it was like I remember thinking like that's the only good thing I've heard, and it's for a good reason. Like I've said this before. I'm a big fan of misinformation, disinformation. Like
yeah,
you don't want anyone to think that this kid's got a grip on this job. You want them thinking like they're throwing him to the wolves. They don't have another option. Minshew's washed. And I don't believe that for the record. So I actually think like Minshew's perfectly capable. But when it comes to a guy like Anthony Richardson, I don't know what y'all spend your time thinking about, but I think about when you go to run an offense, what his looks are going to look like when he actually goes to naturally roll out or
Yeah,
naturally sprint out. And I think about having that big a body moving at that speed, where guys will be in routes when you let go of the ball, and it's like he's going to have so much a better time, and will throw so many fewer interceptions because he's an athlete first, right? And I think it'll only prove to be hyper relevant at the position moving forward. Because like we've been saying, I wanted to say for a while, into a larger microphone as possible. This will have to do. The problem in the NFL is that these offensive linemen are not progressing as athletes as fast as the opposite side of the ball.
yeah,
Defensive line, athletically, these guys are absurd. Only getting faster and lower to the ground and getting to the quarterback even faster, which in my eyes, if they're failing in my eyes at the offensive line level at producing better athletes and better talent at those positions, than it is on the quarterback ultimately to protect themselves. And I think obviously it'd be great if every guy could drop back and just throw and he knew where he was going with the ball every time. Um, but this league's becoming more and more about being able to be the extra runner when the
yeah,
defense is in a perfect alignment, and you go to hand it off, they plug that gap. You have to keep that now. There's an alley, but if you run, higher than like a 4.7, you're not making it through that gap before you get crushed. But if you're running like a sub 4.65 or
yeah,
faster, you're probably getting through that hole and making a nice play. And that's like what you will look forward to. You'll have flashbacks this upcoming season of last year, Matt Ryan, pockets collapsing, or more likely he has plenty of time and he has no reason to do anything but look down a receiver and throw to an open receiver, and instead he goes to move and he gets touched and goes down. Instead of that happening, it's about to be a 20-yard run, and you're like, oh, he extended the drive. It wasn't a
yeah.
designed
You stay on the
run.
field. Yeah,
Yeah, and then every now and then there will be a designed run. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so awesome to see! Like your quarterback actually effective runner of the football." But yeah, look for a lot of field goals because it's very hard to score touchdowns at the NFL level. Largely, by the way, not a ton to talk about with the Colts. Again, been a pretty quiet off season. The only real thing to talk about is this injury last play, and then obviously we kind of joke
yeah. We have it. Say,
how quiet it had been, and then it comes out Isaiah
right
Rodgers
after that, Isaiah Rodgers was suspended, and we were just
gambles.
talking before. Yeah, like we are not sure yet, but we are assuming that he did not bet against the team, because if
Right.
he had done so, he would already have been released and out of the league by now, because we
Yep.
know how serious the NFL takes its integrity. Like last year, Calvin Ridley was suspended for the entire season for betting while injured. He bet on I believe it wasn't the Falcons. I believe it was like
But it
other
wasn't on
teams.
their opponent though, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It was he was not betting against against his team. He was
Yeah.
not playing, but he was still suspended an entire year. So I
Mhm.
believe that unless the NFL is looking to uh, flexi, unless they are looking to soften at their gambling policy a bit,
Yeah.
which I don't see happening. Isaiah Rodgers is most likely suspended for at least the season, like at least the entire year.
Well, I mean, that'd have been the thing that I've been thinking about this whole time is along the lines of what you said. He clearly didn't bet against the Colts because if he had, he'd have been suspended out of the league, possibly for life. Um, and obviously he's also not the person that lost $8 million because you got to have 8 million to lose it. And then I just think, I mean, we were kind of talking about it before the show where I was like, right. And then the Colts host a gambling summit, and the NFL is in bed with all these sports books. And I happen to write about gambling for the site. So crazily enough, we record a podcast. We're like, oh, it's been the quietest off season ever. And then dink, dink, get hit with a couple in a row.
Yeah,
Right after that, losing a fifth round defensive player for the year. And then possibly another in Isaiah Rodgers. And again, I don't have a problem. I guess it's kind of along the lines of which you've been saying. If he bet against the Colts, he's like a
Yeah,
traitor,
it's
right? Like you can't
yeah,
have that guy. That guy's gonna have hard time keeping a job in the NFL. Um, so it's clear to me. I don't think it'll be a year. I think it already happened. I think that it just so happened that they were having the gambling summit. He probably had to attend that. He probably got a stern talking to. He's probably gonna
yeah,
get. Look, there's no amount of games I could say and not come off like I'm trying to say like it's okay, but it's like 6 games, 8 games.
yeah,
I'm telling you, if it was going to be a year or worse, they'd have already done
yeah. It
all
would
of it.
already have happened.
They
Yeah,
they had a symposium after that happened, and that kind of tells me like they got to work on softening the language. I'm with you. You bet against your own team, you're a traitor, probably out of the NFL.
yeah, you're
But
done.
and again, I'm not a big fan of being an act. And again, that's part of the thing about that article I was telling you that I'd written. I'd actually posted a commentary about this in that I'd said, like I'm actually in the process of trying to become an NFL head coach. And gone so far as like the guys that I'm involved with, the soldiers sidelines, have told me like don't apply for other jobs. And the people that are advising me are like, we got to get you attached to a winner, right? That helps your career, right? So when I speak on these things and I'm thinking about these, if that was to ever happen to me, like I'm ever to even interview for a job, I'm probably not writing about gambling anymore, right?
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
so.
want I don't want there to be any crossover where I was an employee of an NFL team writing about gambling. It's not a good
Yeah,
look.
it's not a good look. Yeah, not a good look.
Probably the same thing at any other level, right? I probably wouldn't want to write about gambling and be a college coach even, right? Um, so yeah, just to get that out, I want to make sure I get that out there on a podcast. Like I have a perspective on this, right? I intend to be also employed by the same kind of people that employ your Calvin Ridleys and your Isaiah Rodgers, right? Um, I just think it's like the NFL is the shield, right? Like protect the shield, right? Like you have to think about this
Yeah,
company that you work for, the last bastion of humanity, as I like to refer to it. Um, but yeah, that's kind of it when it comes to the Colts, right?
yeah,
These things, otherwise, it's been quiet and thankfully so. Uh,
yeah. Hopefully, we it remains like this again. Like it goes back to being awfully quiet. No good news, no
yeah.
nothing, no injuries, no gambling scandals,
Mm-mm.
no
You got about
nothing,
5 weeks
no
to
news.
training camp, though.
Yeah, just keep it that way, and
Mhm.
we'll wait our our
Yeah,
5 weeks.
yeah,
I was watching. I started watching the just an of the nothing to do with it commentary. I was watching the promo videos with guys players can wear number 0 right now,
yeah,
and I got excited about that, and it got me thinking like, damn, life without football is just so boring.
yeah.
I got excited watching because cool, guys are going to be able to wear number 0, and I was genuinely excited about that, and I was like, damn, like I need football back. Like it's getting really boring.
It is. It is funny. I hate to be like this. I sound like a boomer saying it, but I'll see somebody doing something physical, like on Facebook or TikTok, like a video where they're committing a physical feat, and my brain goes, "Yeah, but he ain't playing football, or he should have been playing football, or like why isn't he a football player? Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Especially when it's any feat of like strength at all, you know what I mean, or like timing, running and catching something, and you're just like, okay, it was a frisbee, but like, what if that was a football? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I'm with you on. I don't know that. What is it? The UFL or
XFL, the one from
XFL.
the yeah.
Um, the problem is that I've harped about the quality of the offensive line play is even worse than in the NFL at those levels, and as a result, it has a unique impact on the game where athleticism at the quarterback is even more to premium at any level outside of the NFL. Being an athlete at quarterback is even more important. Um, so yeah, again, getting your somewhat of your fill watching that, but It's like you said, I need some real football for too long here. And then yeah, I figure it's probably best we spend the bulk of our time here talking about the NBA draft since that's this week.
Yeah.
And talking about the NBA in whole. Here's one I saw connected to the Pacers today. Somebody posited, and I ultimately commented, Zion Williamson on the trade
Yeah,
block.
reportedly.
I don't think he's worth much, but the
Yeah,
Pacers need
what
like a
is it?
3-4. And I'm assuming nobody's willing to pay what he wants. And it's like, hey, he falls to the Colts who get him for next to nothing. And he becomes a solid
Yeah, I
rotational
mean,
piece for the
what
Colts.
is what is he worth right now? Like, what would an ideal
I don't think he's a max contract
trade
player.
for? Yeah, I mean, you basically have the health issues, and even
Mhm.
not taking that into account, you have, now they reported, scandal with this woman that
Oh yeah,
just
all the
off the
women he's
field
knocked up.
issues.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's
that
complicated. I don't wanna get too
I'm
much
not
into
saying
that.
I want him or nothing, but I'm like, hey, his trade floor bottoms out and he's
Yeah, I
real
mean, his
serious about a
value, yeah,
reclamation project. You know what I mean? You'd take him if you could get him for
yeah.
nothing and get a
His
bodied in
value is
hand.
not getting any. His value is not getting any lower than this. I mean, if you are going to trade for him, I mean, if I'm Indiana, I'm like basically he's perhaps the perfect running mate alongside Tyrese, alongside Mathurin. He's big, he's strong. He can play the three, which we need.
That's what I was
And
saying.
he's
I
yeah, I
get it.
mean,
You don't want him. I get it, but it's like, he is kind of
if you were to do it,
that filler big guy.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Good
Thing is,
lob
like,
threat.
what would you trade for him? Like, what is
Nothing.
the?
I ain't giving you nothing. Pick
I
35.
mean,
You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't want
yeah,
to play the
perhaps
lottery
just
that they're trying to set up for him. I
yeah,
just
I'm
want to bring it
leaving.
up because people were saying the Pacers, there's like five teams that he'd fit on. And I actually read that person's article, and it's only one of the very few times where they actually said positionally, this makes sense for these five teams. And I'm like, oh, bravo. You don't normally see that. Normally, it's just like, it feels like they're throwing darts against the wall and
Yeah, saying
they hit a
like,
club and
okay,
said, oh, all right,
say,
yeah, to
big
the
market
Magic.
teams,
This makes
yeah,
sense.
the
Like, haha.
Lakers,
Like, no, it
the
doesn't.
the Mavericks, like, when you're just, yeah, this doesn't make sense.
My
No, the
favorite shit
Pacers,
was Kyrie got himself traded to the Mavericks to be closer to LeBron. Make that make sense in your fucking head.
nah, yeah.
Like he got himself traded to Dallas so he could be closer to LeBron in LA. That makes sense if you're looking at the map,
Nah.
but otherwise that doesn't make any damn sense.
Other
And
than that,
then
yeah, it would be interesting to watch. Now, in my opinion, I having been a Pacers fan for like 10 years, 11 years.
yeah, okay.
What is most likely going to happen is, they are going to stay put, draft. I believe it's either Jarass Walker or Cameron Whitmore to take over the four
Yeah.
spot, and that's gonna be it. I don't see them making a splash. I mean, what was last
I read an
time?
article that the Pacers last four picks, like not the seven, but those other picks are not high enough for to package and make a noise. And that basically, because of the value of those picks, it would require too many of them to move up for it to be worth it when the Pacers, not the Colts, the Pacers are still like a building team. Hey, you get 4 or 5 young guys that were draft eligible that, they Pacers did a ton of workouts with
Yeah,
top 50 talent. Um, I'm excited because I feel like for the first times in a very long time, the Pacers are headed in a good direction, and this draft class could be a boon where, a lot of times, I wouldn't say a lot of times, every year in the NBA draft, there are teams that do not benefit at all from the draft.
yeah,
That neither of the players that they pick come out and do anything for them and are cut or not part of their team most of the way through the season. With the Pacers having like 4 or 5 picks in the top 35 picks, there's a good odd. The odds are pretty good that a couple of those guys stick. and are able to provide you with meaningful minutes. And that's all the Pacers really need because they have really good guards and shooters. So they don't really need all that. You need guys that can play, that can defend anybody, right? And are willing to like rebound and stuff like that, and be the sort
Yeah,
of like 3-4 that you need, a floor runner, would be ideal. That's the only reason I even make it made sense to even think about Zion is like he's really just a floor runner. And like you get him out with Halliburton, that's a nice little lob, lob city. But again, he's too injury prone to really be betting money on. I felt like talking about it just to see how preposterous it is, and like how there's no way that would happen. Like you said, his floor is, or his ceiling shot, his floor is, he's fallen through the floor. Um, and then there was a trade today. So I think the most interesting thing that happened in the last 2 weeks is this Beal trade.
yeah,
Um, Beal for Paul, Bradley Beal for Chris Paul and picks and another player.
yeah, and
Uh,
Landry Shamet.
yeah, to the Suns, and now the Suns are looking real good in the West. Um, would love to see a 7-game series between the Suns and Nuggets. And if I remember correctly, uh, didn't didn't Phoenix win 2 games in their series against Denver? And weren't they
Yeah, I
like
believe they did, but I'm
yeah,
like, I don't trust the Suns any longer. Like when they had Paul and Booker and they were up 2-0 against the Mavericks. No, and the year before, they were up 2-0 in the finals, and I was like, okay, they look like they're gonna win it. Then they were up against the Mavericks and they blew it. Losing Game 7 in spectacular. Like they lost by what was it, like 40? They were
yeah.
down 45 at one point. They lost. Then you go out and you get KD and you still manage to lose because players not healthy. They just don't play well together. And you know what? Did they lose like against the Nuggets? What was it like in six? I believe it was.
I like Bradley Beal though. So
Yeah, I like
I'm
him.
glad
Like
I'm
he's a
glad
good player, but
he gets to go play on a team that has other guys that can handle it on nights, because the big thing about Miami is I think without Hero, the what is it? Heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? And I think for Miami, without Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler is in a position where that crown gets too heavy, and you can just tell
yeah,
it's in his legs. You need multiple guys that can get it, and KD is one of those guys that um, he's so good. And he's right. I actually heard KD on a podcast recently, and I was like, man, I really like KD. He was talking about
yeah,
like
he's a good guy.
most players don't have enough of an offensive repertoire for the opponent to make a big adjustment against you. Um, so they will just let you shoot all day. But KD has such a well-developed offensive repertoire that they'll literally change up the coverage every time he goes down the floor to try to challenge him, because otherwise he's going to get to a spot and get a shot off and it's going in. There's nothing you can do about that. And he said like I could score 50, 60 if the opposing coach didn't have an ego. If he wasn't sitting there like, what can we do to keep him from just getting to the elbow and hitting a
Yeah,
15-footer in our face every time. Um, but yeah, I like that because I don't have a ton of faith in Booker or Aiton. So
yeah, me neither.
I like Bradley Beal as like the technically the two. Um, push Booker to be your point. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, now you're like, okay, you have Booker, Beal, KD, you have Aiden, you're most likely going to be filling out your roster with not great guys, but you have those four. I mean, if you thinking way ahead about like next year and who is your favorite to win the championship, you have to be thinking, the Suns, at least in paper, have to be there. But in my head, it's like, okay, this is the team, that just finds way to lose. They
yeah.
just always, seem to find a way to blow it.
And Denver could be a problem for a few years
Yeah.
too. Um, I think Denver was a lock for this championship when they drafted MPJ. I remember when he got picked and I was like, ooh, he kind of slid to them too. Like that's gonna hurt. And then he's just a mismatch. Jokic is Jokic, Murray's Murray, but MPJ, um, Michael Porter Jr., by the way,
Yeah,
was a catalyst. There, he's such a good two-way player. He's active, got active hands, offensive, defense. He's long. He can get a shot off. But yeah, Nuggets are gonna be a problem for a while. I wouldn't necessarily. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Sacramento is gonna be tough. Um, so you gotta be thinking about them in the West too. Um, Ja Morant got a 25 game suspension. Certainly a
yeah,
lot of drama for only a 25 game suspension, and also allegedly not actually a pistol.
yeah.
Apparently that was a
I'm
toy gun. So
I'm
for
I'm
the record, you
thinking
know
more.
what's dumber than flashing a pistol on IG?
Yeah, flashing a toy pistol.
Flashing a toy pistol on IG and still getting the same fucking punishment. Yeah, that's even dumber. Everybody wants to be a gangster. Everybody wants to be a gangster until you don't have the nuts to actually pull out a pistol. And instead, it's a toy gun and it still gets the same punishment. You're just an idiot. You're just a cold idiot.
Yeah,
Um,
ever since that drama with they had with the Pacers where they reportedly flashed a red dot against the Pacers team, but I was like, yeah, this team ain't doing nothing. Like they are just
oh
thugs.
yeah,
They are not interested in winning. They are not professional, and
no, they're
it
doing too
proved.
much of that
They
other
lost.
shit.
Yeah, they lost against the Lakers. Thank God. Dylan Brooks was. Hopefully, he's going to China or to
Oh,
Europe.
Dylan
Back
Brooks is
into
another one of those
obscurity.
players I'm like surprised he's in the NBA. Dylan
Yeah,
Brooks,
hopefully
Patrick
he's.
Beverly, Draymond, like I'll never figure them out. They just didn't quit. That's what happened.
Yeah, the only
Just
guy,
not
the
very
only
good
guy
basketball
I
players.
feel, yeah, only guy I feel kind of bad about is Desmond Bain, who he always seemed like a stand-up guy. He never got into any trouble. He just went out and played,
Yeah.
and didn't get, in my opinion, did not get the recognition he deserved. And he's a good player. He's a good ball player. He's quiet. He just balls out. And I mean, it sucks for him, but I really like what Draymond said about Dylan Brooks. Like, the dynasty is not happening because of you. Their dynasty perhaps starts when you leave. Like, you're not that guy. It seems like, yeah,
Them
that's
tough words,
bad.
bro. You know what I
And
mean? Like
it's
that's pretty
coming.
tough.
Yeah, and hopefully Jack can get his shit together. He can get his head straight, because it's hard not to think that he's struggling in some way, mentally. Perhaps, you're a 23-year-old player, like getting all of the flashes and all of the attention. Like, hopefully he can get his set together and become a good NBA player.
Yeah. It's I know I'm keep saying it that heavy is the head that wears the crown. Like I've realized this lately. Like all these guys have been told you're the man your whole life, and they get to the league and they get affirmed that, right? Their paycheck. I was reading a NBA player. I was talking about his paycheck after taxes. Every 2 weeks is a $500,000. And you just think about like money can't be the driver. That can be what gets you up anymore and get you excited to go to work every day. Can't be the money. It's your cup overfloweth. So like what is it that actually drives you to greatness? Because like a lot of guys get to the league and they just stop working. You know what I mean? Bradley Beal has been one of the players in the league that I feel like every time I look at the box score, he's overperformed. So I'm glad he's going out there out west where it's good competition too.
Yeah,
I like the Western Conference has been more interesting basketball as far as basketball goes for a while anyway. So there's that. I think we kind of talked about what kind of has happened here.
yeah,
It's the week of the NBA draft. Just got a few days to go. And then it's all Pacers.
Yeah, after
Right.
that,
The draft it might is a 2 day affair, but I mean, like if you're really thinking about who's going to be getting quite a bit of clock, it's the Pacers. They got a million picks. Um, so yeah, which is it's interesting. It's just interesting how the Colts and Pacers are both super into the draft and like trying to acquire people and want to give themselves multiple shots. Because again, you don't at this point. It's kind of crazy. Was Pantis this little conversation on Twitter about there not being a need for a star anymore. About they don't need a star to beat you. You
yeah,
just need like 10 good players. You just need 10 guys to show up um, and play together and be about each other, and not be selfish, right? And have a good game plan and shit and all that. But like you really look at not you just take away the Nuggets, take away the Heat, and look at Boston's roster. You could try to jam star into like two or three other guys, and it just don't fit. I don't think. I think they're just really good basketball players, bro. And like they could just have like a group of really good basketball players that goes to the playoff every year and can go all the way to the finals if they're healthy and hitting, you know. Um,
yeah,
but as far as the Pacers go, you've got your point guard. I think you have a 1 and a 5, and that everything else is like wide open. You don't really know who's going to show up night to night, right? You need a lot of filler minutes from the 2 to 4. And if you're a kid that's hungry, that's draft eligible, like why wouldn't you go to the Pacers?
yeah,
All you got to do is gel with that point guard and not get in Miles Turner's fucking way. And like
yeah, and that's it.
it can actually be a part of this. And that's not to say that they'll even make the team. That's what makes me kind of excited about the Pacers for once, where I'm like, this isn't you draft 4 or 5 guys and they all stick either. This is you draft 4 or 5 guys and bust their ass, and you just find out you got better dudes in the building already. So I think it's good to create this competition and to have both of my teams doing it while I'm sitting here saying that this is good, like you're gonna get good results out of this. And then keep in mind that like the Pacers won 35 games last year, which was
Yeah,
10 more games than they won the year prior, with no star. And I'm gonna keep saying shit like that. Like you're doing that with no star player. So it's kind of feeding that what I'm saying. You just gotta have guys show up night in and night out. And again, I get it. Halliburton is like an all-star point guard. No, he's not a
yeah,
traditional
but
star. He's not a traditional scorer, leading scorer, ball required in order for him to do something good. He's mostly a distributor. They're just damn good at it. Um, and gonna be for a while if he can stay healthy. So yeah, the Pacers are about to be the darling this week. So it's
yeah,
great that we were able to sit down the week of the draft and say, hey, here's these couple newsy types of events going on, but largely like I'm super excited. Draft's in a few days, buddy.
yeah. It's gonna be a good one, definitely.
And we'll come back. We always do like every couple weeks in the summer. That
Yeah,
way we
because
get to
there's not
kind of
much to
enjoy
talk
your
about.
summer.
We could do, like a post-draft episode, of course, recapping whatever the hell the Pacers did, and if there
Yeah.
is, any other news.
Well, I mean, we've been doing every 2 weeks, so you could just stick
Yeah,
with that.
yeah, it's
The
been
next
working.
episode
Didn't
will
broke. Yeah,
will be a post-draft episode, looking post-draft and about 3 weeks out from training camp. So, um, again, still kind of the doldrums of summer, but like the week of the
yeah, a
NBA
little more.
draft, it's like NBA draft, 4th of July, and then basically football season. That's how I think about it.
Yeah,
So
we just have to, be patient, wait, hang in there a bit more, and then before you know it, we'll be right back on the regular season, NFL regular season once again.
yeah,
Like just couple month more.
couple more sleeps, man. We're almost there, baby. Well, hey, have a great rest of your week. Again, this has been the season 2, episode 10, the 2023 NBA draft week episode. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you here in a couple
Yeah.
weeks.
See you in a couple weeks.
See ya.